without any doubt. Of course we would. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that one out. The point is, the statue should stay exactly where it is at Columbus Circle. Do not fall into the trap of, oh, bring the statue to Staten Island. We'll accept it with open arms. That's losing the battle against people. There's an element in our city and country that does not like America, the America that we grew up with. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, just one more thing. Could you imagine I don't know what you had in your other hearings, but could you imagine going into some of these other boroughs and somebody telling you to applaud this way? I'm going to try that at Yankee Stadium the next time I go and see how that goes over.
I will say, just to be clear, we have done that in every borough. We were right next to the Yankee Stadium in the Bronx yesterday, and people did abide by this. So thank you very much. Richard Connolly.
Yes, I'm Dick Conley with the Schiller Institute. I'm from Chicago, and I thank you for the opportunity of you citizens of New York of giving me the opportunity to say why this is germane to every human being to keep the statue of Columbus. Because the issue is, what was Columbus trying to do? He was out to reach out to China. He thought he was sailing to China. In fact, the reason why, they call Native Americans Indians is because, according to his astrolabe, he thought he reached India instead. But the issue is the issue of exploration, which Columbus was the vessel of, to bring the scholarly renaissance, the fruits of reviving the Socratic ideas of how to think, how not to be a slave, how not to be divided and conquered by an empire. We should think about that today. We have an opportunity, to be friends with China and Russia today. And if we don't, then we're doomed. So let that sink in. Now, China, look, this attack on Christopher Columbus is actually done by the old guard, the mind benders who use, like Bertrand Russell said, if we can teach the children that snow is black, we have it. So they do all the scholarly research, they get a rap sheet on Columbus and say, this is Columbus. That's not Columbus. Columbus was a unifying figure for all mankind, and everybody who values their humanity should be fighting to keep that statue up and should be studying the Renaissance that Nicholas of Cusa and Leonardo da Vinci and all these wonderful Italians have. They have the right to be proud of what they contributed for all mankind, and they should not lose that. And the singing, we're very big promoters of singing, and we'll be singing over there in the next borough at St. Joseph Cole Cathedral on December 16th, if you can see our classical music concert. So just for all humanity, we should learn to live together with one another, and don't offend the Italians. They have feelings too, right?
Thank you. Okay, Edward, please.
Actually, it's Leonard.
I'm sorry.
It's Leonard.
Leonard.
Yes.
Sorry, Leonard. Leonard
Robusto.
Robusto.
I'm from the Knights of
thank you.
Columbus. The task before you. This committee has the opportunity to proceed along either of two lines, the line of divisiveness or the line of inclusion. The choice facing this committee is whether to take a myopic view of history and thereby create anger and ill will among the people of this city, or take a broad view of history and thereby create harmony and inclusiveness in the minds and hearts of this people in this great city, making this great city even greater. On the one hand, this committee could suggest the removal of the statue of Christopher Columbus. On the other hand, they could suggest the erection of a statue to honor Native Americans right here on Staten Island, where such a statue was approved by the federal government 100 years ago. I believe it was during the administration of Grover Cleveland. Future generations and critical historians will assess the working of this committee. Don't fail in the task before you. Take the line of healing and inclusiveness, not the line of anger and divisiveness. The choice between Columbus and Native Americans is not exclusive. Rather, the choice is for this committee to suggest honoring both. Have the courage to embrace that approach, which will lead to harmony, healing, and inclusiveness among all the people of the city of New York. Keep Columbus and honor the Native Americans.
Thank you. Please, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, I've been told, just from a fire safety point of view, we're asking everybody to sit in the available chairs. Standing in the path of the door is a fire hazard, so if people can move away from the door, please. Okay, Suzanne Klebb, Gerald, please, sorry. Gary Acerna and sorry, I apologize. Gerald Gueria. Sorry. You should, yeah. We should have John Gavelli help me with the pronunciations. I'm so sorry. Okay. Would you like to start, Suzanne?
Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Suzanne Klebe. I also am with the International Schiller Institute. The Italian director of the Schiller Institute issued an open letter to President Donald Trump in defense of Columbus and indicated the impact in Italy of hearing what was being proposed in the United States, and made a very strong statement to the president that it was critical to support the Italian heritage, but also this heritage of the Renaissance. She references in here, she says, as an Italian citizen and chairwoman of Movisol, Lyndon LaRouche's movement in Italy, I call on you to intervene in defense of Christopher Columbus and Columbus Day, the same people who are out to destroy the U.S. presidency, led by Wall Street speculator George Soros, who destroyed the Italian lira in 1992, are also trying to eradicate history and culture, not only in the United States, but internationally. Cardinal Nicholas of Cusa, his Italian collaborator, Toscanelli, Columbus, Vespucci, and others were part of an evolution in culture, art, geography, and science, which made the discovery of America possible. The deliberate explosion in human creativity that was the Italian Renaissance is a truly proud moment in all humanity's history, and not merely for Italians. The people who want to abolish Columbus Day, whether they are maliciously witting or merely deluded, are out to also dismantle this Western cultural and scientific heritage. And then she continues from there. I think there's two things to add. She points out in this that there's a dark age element which we're now witnessing internationally. Just last week there was a horrible bombing of a Sufi mosque in Egypt. It was pointed out, and there was actually a trial by the International Criminal Court, of the destruction of the Sufi mosques, from ancient Timbuktu, where over 4,000 documents were destroyed as part of this kind of cultural warfare, We saw the execution of a 82-year-old archaeologist in Palmyra by ISIS because he refused to turn over the place of the ancient, some of the ancient material from the Roman city of Palmyra. This policy of destroying cultures around the world, whether it's in Iraq or Syria or Timbuktu in Africa and Mali, or also this attempt here, is something that we have to confront, because the actual question is, what does make us human? And this idea of the inventive, creative spirit, which is what, after all, was being honored with the creation of the statue of Columbus, is something that's critical to teach. And I will have 2 seconds to say that I think that this may give us the opportunity in education in the United States to take the achievements of the explorers of Renaissance period and so forth and begin to actually teach children what it takes to make maps, to operate by astronomy, and to be involved in these kinds of great achievements.
Okay,
Thank
you very much. By the way, so I apologize about my very poor reading skills, but is Gerald, and then the last name, Aongueira, is Gerald here? Oh,
Corinda Ongera.
No, okay. Let's finish this. Go, Gary, and then we'll get to the next panel. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning. My name is Gary Yasera. I'm also with the Knights of Columbus, as Mr. Russo is. And I'm here to ask you not to take down that statue, because if you do, it is an insult and an offensive act to every Italian-American that's made a positive contribution to society. And this has to stop. Mr. Columbus made some mistakes. Every leader with a statue has made mistakes. What's next? Mount Rushmore? We're going to take down the Verrazano Bridge? I feel this is, they're saying Columbus did this. He made a mistake. It shouldn't outweigh his accomplishments. And again, I say, if you do this, you offend every Italian American, myself included, that's done something positive to society. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, again, please. Okay, thank you. Michael Giotti, Joseph Granello, and Henry Decker are up next. We will get to everybody, we promise. We're not going anywhere. Okay, there we go. And sir, you are?
Joseph Brunel.
Joseph, and then second is?
Michael Gotti.
Michael, okay, and then Henry, okay. So go ahead, Joseph, you're up.
My name is Joseph Brunello. I live on Staten Island.
You speak right into the mic.
Okay. My name is Joseph Brunello, and I live on Staten Island, Sunnyside, just down the road a bit. And I do not have any prepared remarks. But what I'd like to share with you is what Christopher Columbus means to me. My parents came here, actually my grandparents came here the turn of the century. And they came out of abject poverty in Italy. My grandfather came from a little place called Alano di Piave, which is in the northeast part of the country. Now, each time I think of him, I get a little emotional because the guy didn't even have a pair of shoes. And proof of that, I'd like to read a brief paragraph from a letter that I found written in 1935 from Italy to my uncle, who was living here in the United States. And it's just one brief paragraph. And the woman says to my uncle, "I would like to ask you a big favor. Of course, if you can." This was written in Italian, so it's our translation. "If your mom and sister have any old clothes for winter that no longer use, for us anything is good, since we will be using everything, even an old pair of shoes, if you can, and it is not an inconvenience." Christopher Columbus, when you look at the statue, he came across and found the country where I grew up in, I was born and raised in Hell's Kitchen. I retired from AT&T as a manager, found my own business for the last 26 years. And I appreciate America and what Christopher Columbus gave to us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Michael, you're next.
Primarily, I would like to thank Ms. Gianelli and Mr. Benjamin for bringing us here. And also, I see there's a lot of vets here today, so thank you for your service to all the vets. And I wanted to actually turn the attention, primarily I do support taking down the statue of Christopher Columbus, because although it may mean a lot to Italian Americans, you also have to remember what it does mean to Native Americans. That symbol is a symbol of genocide, it's a symbol of rape, it's a symbol of murder. It's not just, this city is not just for us. I also just wanted to point out that the politicians that were here, thank you for the ones that did stay, but there were others that stayed to talk for themselves. They heard maybe one or two people and then they left. I'm just aggravated that while we had to listen to them, where are they to listen to us? They're never here and they don't, you know.
Please.
Thank you to the ones that did stay, like Senator Savino. I also wanted to point out there's statements made, like Assemblyman Ron Castrini said the left. I'm a proud progressive, I'm a proud liberal, proud Hillary and Bernie supporter. By him saying the left, that divides us. I don't see myself as the left. I see myself as a Staten Islander and an American who has an Italian heritage who does support taking down the statue, but I see us all as Staten Islanders, not the left and the right. We should be unifying on issues like education. When my textbooks are from the 1940s, that's a bigger issue than worrying about a statue in the city. When we have vets that are homeless, when we have vets that go to the VA and wait months, that's an issue. When we have a tax bill that, I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to see a nice little increase, like Nicole and Takis like to talk about before. We want to talk about property taxes. The new tax bill that's about to go in will destroy everybody's property taxes with the Trump tax bill. These are things we should be focusing on, not if the Columbus statue in Manhattan should be up or not. And if it is taken down, I understand it does mean a lot to some, but we also have a lot of other things to be proud of than just one statue and one man. Because Columbus doesn't represent the entire Italian heritage. There's a house down in Rosebank, the creator of the, supposedly Alexander Graham Bell's creator of the telephone. We all know the Italian American down in Rosebank created the telephone, and you can go see that house if you're very proud of your Italian heritage. That one statue shouldn't mean that much, and we should all be unifying on other issues. Right now the country's immensely divided, and it shouldn't be that way. I know you guys may feel as if it means a lot to you as an Italian American, but I don't know how you would like it if someone, let's say the Black Lives Matter group came out and created a Black Lives Matter statue, because I know Black Lives Matter offends many of you too. If that's their heritage and they came over here and they created a statue, you probably wouldn't be that happy too. We should be unifying on issues, not dividing over the issues. This is, to me, a pointless conversation. We should be worrying education, homelessness, vets' rights, healthcare, our elderly, our young. That's what's important for the community to thrive as one. You know, we need to stop saying the left or the right. We are one. We're all Americans. We're all Staten Islanders. We should come together on that.
Thank you. Please. Again, I'm asking everybody to express your applause like this. Please, thank you. Henry, you're next.
Good morning. My name's Henry Decker. I'm a retired...
Please speak right into the mic.
I'm a retired New York City firefighter and an arts educator. Political correctness. The dictionary defines it as the avoidance, often considered as taken to extremes, of language, policies, or measures that are perceived to exclude, marginalize, or insult members of particular groups of society. The mere thought or suggestion that statues or memorials that have graced our city for years should be considered for removal is the epitome of political correctness. New York City has always been super liberal in its beliefs, but we're going too far in an attempt to right the wrongs of our forefathers. We cannot alter or eradicate history to suit the agenda of any one group of people. Equality and inclusion must be for all. It can't be like a flavor of the month club. Our past, our history, is part of evolution. We've made mistakes and we've corrected a lot of them. Not all of them. We've got a long way to go. The United States was founded on white supremacy. Article 1 of the Constitution referred to slaves as 3/5 of a person, and Article 4 required states to return runaway slaves. We all know how wrong slavery was, but it did happen. That means that 12 of our first 18 presidents owned slaves. That means that 3/4 of Mount Rushmore will need to be imploded if the symbols of hate movement continues across our land. Grant's tomb up on Riverside Drive, sorry, it's got to go. He owned slaves and was an anti-Semite. Do any of you have room for 250-year-old corpses in your family plot? Of course, I'm not making light of the atrocities of our nation's past, but we must learn from our mistakes and move toward the future. To remove these monuments will not change history, and we stand to lose more than we would gain. Consider losing the following: Trinity Church, built by slaves; Tweed Courthouse, named after the most corrupt boss the city has ever known;
Thank you.
the Frick Museum. Henry Frick was known as the most hated man in America. Carnegie Hall. Many of Andrew Carnegie's business activities today would be considered immoral and illegal. Would we rename the Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz Center in Harlem because Malcolm preached violence and black supremacy? We haven't even approached the issues of landmark status, removal cost, or city versus state. Many of these symbols are city landmarks, some national historic monuments. Ultimately, who would pay to remove all of these statues? The taxpayers. And then there's the question of where will they go? They'll sit in a city warehouse somewhere for a little while, then all of a sudden someone will realize that each of these things weigh between 15 to 40 tons. And the going rate for bronze yesterday was $1.75 a pound. Wouldn't you know it, overnight, piece by piece, they'll mysteriously disappear,
Sir,
never
if you
to
could
be seen
wrap it up.
again.
Thank you.
Scott Malcolmson, a writer for the New York Times and a senior official at the UN and the US State Department, sums it up by saying, "I doubt the past can be apologized for in any case because it is beyond the reach of forgiveness. The past can only be understood and integrated into the present. Its effects of present recognized and incorporated into a daily practice that repair cannot have an ending any more than the past has an ending. This is not an apology, but a moral life in a tragic world."
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. The next three is Lawrence Toto, John Hecklinger, and Joseph Hannum. What's that? Yeah, you're not up yet. You'll be in the next script. Okay? All right, sir, on the left, your name is? I'm sorry, you're right, yes.
John Hecklinger.
You're John, okay, and then second is?
Jason
Oh, sorry. Jason, and then you must be Lawrence. Okay, John, you're first.
My grandparents were Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe, but today I consider myself an Italian. In preparing my grief remarks today, I took a one-day crash course on Columbus and the holiday that bears his name. It's hard to believe that from such humble origins he achieved so much in his lifetime. It's also hard to believe that we are judging an historical figure from the 15th century by 21st century standards of political correctness. From Wikipedia, I learned that celebrations of his voyage took place as early as 1792, when various cities, including New York City, marked the event on its 300th anniversary. During the administration of President Benjamin Harrison 100 years later, there were further testimonials to his achievements, and in 1866, for the first time, Italian Americans in New York City observed Columbus Day in honor of their joint Italian heritage, Columbus having been born in Genoa, Italy. It became a statutory holiday in Colorado, of all places, in 1907, and in 1934, President Roosevelt proclaimed it a federal holiday. Then, in 1992, on the 500th anniversary of this historic crossing of the Atlantic, Berkeley, California, what a surprise, replaced Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day, a trend that caught fire with other localities, and sadly brings us here today where this commission decides the fate of various statues erected in his honor. Without delving into the misdeeds that Columbus is supposed to have committed 500 years ago, I can only point out the slippery slope that this commission is embarking upon. Once you succumb to revisionist history and impose your own subjective interpretation of historical events, where do you stop? Shall we burn all books that present his achievements in a positive light? Shall we ignore the undeniable and remarkable achievement in maritime navigation that he brought about and his accidental discovery of a new route to North America at a time when most of his contemporaries were skeptical of what he was trying to accomplish? None of this is meant to deny the cruel and unjust treatment of the native Indian population that occurred over ensuing centuries. But if you're serious about righting this historical wrong, perhaps you can start by returning to the Indians, Manhattan Island, which our Dutch forebears built them out of for 60 guilders, or $1,000 by today's accounting. My fear is that this commission is nothing more than a show trial, and the fate of the statues is already a fait accompli. I implore this commission to step back from this dire and dangerous step and instead focus city resources on the real problems of New Yorkers: rising homelessness, the breakdowns in the subway system, the need for infrastructure overhaul, declining education standards, and housing shortages, just to name a few. Please leave Columbus alone.
Thank you. Joseph, you're next. Please speak directly into the...
I don't think that this is a topic that we really need to be discussing, because I mean, I'm coming from Staten Island, I'm coming from Graniteville. Oh, yeah, Mike. So, like, this isn't really what we need to be concerned about. We need to be concerned about, you know, like when they tore up Richmond Avenue. They had Richmond Avenue torn up over a month. Alright, I blew out 2 car tires, that's not the point. But the point is that my kids and everything, they're not going to be able to learn the way that I learned. Just because someone's offended, someone's going to get offended, you know, everything's going to offend someone. So why are we going to turn around and get rid of something that stands so much for some people? You know, like if you don't want to offend anybody, we're going to get rid of all the statues in New York? That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. Lawrence, you're next.
Hello. I think this is it's kind of stupid because there's more pressing matters than there's a statue, like homelessness and all that. So that's what I got to say.
Okay, thank you. Brevity is the soul of wit. Paul. Is it Matrano, I think? And then Heaven Jenkins and Debbie Ann Page are up next. And you're Paul, and then next to, okay. And you are Heaven, and you are then Debbie Ann. Okay, let's start with Paul and go down this way. Thank you very much.
I'm Paul, and I feel that we should keep the statues because does a statue physically hurt you? It offends people, but I feel like it's standing there. It's right in front of you. It's not hurting you. But there's things that offend people, like comments, like videos, and you can't get rid of those. Some people could, some people can't. But the thing is, all lives matter. Every single one. Not one race matters. We have to keep everyone together, and we have to figure out a way. Maybe it's not the statues, maybe it's some other way, but I feel like we should keep it up because in school, I don't like to look at textbooks. I know people don't like to read, and when I see a statue and I look at it, I'm interested in it. I'm actually seeing it, and I know kids don't cut school and kids don't want to learn, but and a statue intrigues people. It intrigues people to look at it, and it's something there to represent. It may hurt people, but if we have to figure out a way to keep everybody together. That's how I feel.
Okay, thank you. Heaven Jenkins is next. Please speak right into the mic. Thank you.
I strongly disagree with taking down the statue. It is, I feel, it is a large part of our history. It represents so many things. Yes, in that time, things were harsh. And dealing with it, well, viewing it now to our standards, I feel is unfair. Taking down this statue would basically be taking away some history. And as a student myself, I feel that's unfair. When I was in first grade, first learning about Christopher Columbus, I was amazed by him. I don't know why, but I was. I was proud to be where I was, who I was. And by taking the statue down, I feel like you're tearing this away, not only from other kids who can learn from them, but for our future. Basically, taking it down would mess up kind of for future reference. Like,
Right, please speak right.
yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Just taking it down in general, it would kind of take away a lot. We can learn a lot from our mistakes from the past. Like, from earlier, someone said that, like, slavery was a terrible time, but we've learned it from it, we fixed it. Women earning the right to vote, we've learned from it, we fixed it. There's some things you can't fix, but we can move on further from it. And it should be a landmark from how far we've come. We shouldn't erase something just because some people are offended by it. There's a lot of things that offend people, a lot of things that even myself I don't like, but it's a part of our history and it should not be removed.
Thank you. Debbie and Paige.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I am a historian of African American history on Staten Island. I think I'm one of few who even exist. I embrace the immigrant experience. I migrated or emigrated to Staten Island when I was 5 from Jamaica. My family is, currently my niece, my brother, and my sister-in-law live in Torino. And I find myself struggling with the issue. But here's the thing. My hope is to look at this through a broader lens. There are many of us here who call ourselves Staten Islanders, but they don't look like me. Growing up in Staten Island, I can say to you that I didn't see teachers who looked like me. So the narrative and the story that was given to me was through their lens. Therefore, we were taught, I can sing the best Hanukkah songs, and I look forward to it every single December. I know the Italian-American experience. What I don't know thoroughly, or didn't know thoroughly, was the African-American experience here on Staten Island. When I talk to people about African-American history on Staten Island, the first thing people say to me is, did you go to the Sandy Ground? But the history of Staten Island, of African Americans in particular here on the island, is much longer and broader and have much more depth than that. So although I struggle with the issue of taking down a statue, we could possibly rewrite the language underneath the statue. It's much cheaper to point out the acts of genocide, to point out those things that we find offensive. Leave the statue up. But what I do want to see because the history of African Americans on Staten Island has been effectively erased since forever. Because it doesn't, as I go through now, my hope is to start to create markers, because this is not just about taking down a statue. This is an art and monuments and marker commission. And I'd like to charge us as the commission, as Staten Islanders, to create the markers of the places on Staten Island. Stapleton has a long history. Black people have been in Stapleton since its inception. But the people of Stapleton have also had to endure all kinds of things. The Civil War draft rights met the UAME church at its door. We need a marker to preserve that history so that people can learn and understand and know what it is. I just want to take one more moment to say thank you, everyone. But I do believe that this is a conversation that needs to happen. We do need to sit here. It's not just something that should just go away. It's not insignificant, because there are others outside of yourself, outside of myself, that makes this important. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. The next three are Michelle Gerald, Elizabeth Gillette, and Zanacia Matz. Just for full disclosure, I think our current estimate is that we're going to be here until about 2:30. Okay? I am. Whether you are or not is another question. I certainly will be here. And so we're going to take a break, 12:15 or so, to stretch our legs, use the restroom, etc. Okay, you are? Zanasia. And you are? And then you are Elizabeth? Okay. Zanasia, you are first.
Hi, I'm Zanasia Bass from McKee.
Please speak right into the...
Okay, sorry. I disagree with taking down the statue, personally, because all my years in school, I learned about each statue. So, I mean, looking at those statues made me feel like I was there, even though I wasn't there, I wasn't born at the time, but I felt like I was there. Taking down these monuments will not change the past. It will just make things harder for our future, especially for my little sisters. These monuments and markers have stories behind them that make up our world history today. History that teachers still teach till this day, because I'm still learning about each and every other statue in this world. When people take down these monuments, what will kids learn about from our past? Instead of taking down these monuments, they should add more. Add more statues that explain more of our history and what went on. Each student in this world has Each statue in this world has an extraordinary story behind it, and those stories explain our history, such as our Statue of Liberty. That's all.
Thank you. Michelle, you're next. I'm sorry?
Miracle.
I'm sorry. Miracle?
Okay.
Excuse
My
me
name
for
is
that.
Miracle. I go to McKee. I disagree with the fact of taking down a statue. I think we should add more statues. Why would you want to erase history? Instead of taking down the statue, add more, such as Rosa Parks. As you said earlier, as you showed us, Harriet Tubman, we have a Harriet Tubman statue. Why not add Rosa Parks? She was an activist in civil rights movements. The U.S. Congress called her the First Lady of Civil Rights and the Mother of Freedom Movement. Why don't you add her? Instead of putting down other statues, even though everybody has their own opinion, everybody's diverse in their own way, everybody thinks different things. And to say today, everybody's here to say they don't want that statue down because it means something to us as people. So instead of taking it down, add more. There's other people that deserve to be admired as well. There's history that hasn't been spoken yet, that should be spoken.
Thank you, Miracle. I'm sorry about mispronouncing your name.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth. So as my fellow peers said, when I first was offered this opportunity, I feel like a huge part of this controversy is what's going on in social media. I honestly feel as though the controversy of race and who's right and who's wrong. I feel like that's a huge part in what this whole debate is about. For example, the Columbus statue. At first, when you search up on social media, you see, like, when you do your research, you see a lot of people saying, oh, you should take it down, he's a killer, he's this, that, and the third. He was, even though he discovered America, that he did a lot of things like starting slavery. But although he did do these things, although he was an impact of slavery, I feel as though that he was still a huge part of our history, that he was still a man, basically. He was a guy that made mistakes. He was human. So, and we're looking at it as, oh, he was a guy. We're looking at it at a different view. Back then, he came from troubled times and all that sort of stuff. He came from a hard background. So, and at that time, slavery was accepted. So, us to look at it now as African American, well, as myself being African American, I feel as though, yes, he did start these things, but he was still a huge part. He still had a huge impact on America. So I feel as though that he should still stay. We shouldn't take it down because of his mistakes that he made. And also, besides taking it down, I feel like we should build more, as my fellow peer said. We should build people that still had a huge impact, such as Rosa Parks.
Okay, thank you, all three. Next is Glenn Catave, Frank Morano, and Joseph Gagliardo. Right, Joseph on the left, yes, and Frank in the middle, and Glenn on the right. Okay, on mine, I'm sorry. Okay, Joseph, you're first. We're going this way.
Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Joseph Guayado. I represent the 110,000 Italian Americans in civil service, National Council of Columbia Association, and about another 500,000 I represent as the chairman of the Conference of Presidents of Major Italian American Organizations. I'd like to thank you and you for your service, an unenviable job you have. And with that, I want to say, where is the woman that started all of this? She seems to have disappeared. I would have liked to have seen the person, the Speaker of the City Council, who I refuse to mention her name, at the very least testify, since she dragged me out of bed on August 21st, standing in front of a statue, proclaiming to be speaking for Indians, which didn't appear until a month later in a letter form, not in body. But she created this, and yet she hasn't found the respect to be able to sit in front of you and actually give testimony, or at the very least speak to the city after what she did. I don't speak as well as most people do, but I do want to come here today and put a couple of things together. I've heard, why are Italians so upset? Christopher Columbus has nothing to do with Italians. Italy wasn't even created. Christopher Columbus was the uncle in the next room that was invisible. We were taught, many of us Italian Americans were taught very simply that he was a voyager. Wasn't a great man. He was like an Al Franken. A couple of months ago we would have put up a statue. Today, not so much. I had to do one. He was the uncle in the next room. We learned that he was a voyager. We learned that he lived beyond his own vision, and that's what he actually did. We go to that statue. It's part of us. It's part of who we are, and that's why Italian Americans are offended. History is history. That's the reality. Everything that we're looking at now is the interpretation. Do not take that statue down. That statue was vetted 3 times in its history. When it was being considered to be erected, when it was brought before the Italian community and they donated pennies and nickels to erect it, and then later on in history, when the holiday was named after him. That statue was already vetted. Let's leave it alone. Let's leave the date alone. Let's leave the memorials alone. If we were a perfect nation, and this is the only way I would go along with destroying anything, every single family whose money came from owning slaves would have to give up their wealth. Then and only then would we be a perfect nation. We are far from perfect.
So let's leave our statues alone. And for you people that want to put markers on my statue, here, how about we educate kids or give them a cell phone and let them Google it? Every statue has a kiosk.
Thank you. Frank, you're next.
My name is Frank Morano. I'm an Italian-American, obviously, but I'm not going to speak as an Italian-American. I'm speaking purely as an American. Abe Lincoln once said that the world's last best hope was the United States. Today, 150, 160 years later, the United States is still the world's last best hope. Christopher Columbus's discovery way back when in 1492 led to the creation of the world's last best hope. Let's not forget that. Also, I'm hearing that he made mistakes. He practiced genocide. He did not practice genocide. Nobody knew how smallpox was spread. There was no germ theory at the time. Let's be very honest. As a matter of fact, yeah, it was brought to the New World. However, syphilis was brought from the New World to the Old World and spread all over the other continents. So it was an even trade of demons. Let's be very honest about that. As far as that goes, practicing genocide, Europe was hit by the plague. The plague came from Asia. Do we blame Asians for the plague? Say that they practiced genocide in Europe that killed 60% of the people? No, we don't. Because there's things that happened way back when, out of ignorance, we didn't know about germ theory. These things were not known at the time. As far as slavery goes, he did not bring it to the Americans. Slavery was practiced on every continent of this earth, including the Americans. You know, all the Native Americans weren't going around singing Kumbaya together. They fought each other, they were in wars and everything else, like every other people on every other continent. Little known fact, slave traders from North Africa and the Middle East used to raid the southern coast of Europe and take millions of Europeans, especially from Spain and Italy, to North Africa to be sold in the slave markets. So this is something that occurred all over the world. So we are attacking Christopher Columbus on things that he did not do. I'm not defending him as an Italian-American. I'm defending him purely as an American. I'm going to go to one other gentleman. I'm going to go to Robert E. Lee. He's called a traitor. He fought for the South. Well, he wasn't a traitor, because we have to remember, at that time, people had loyalty to their state over the country. His first loyalty was to Virginia. We might not like that or not, but that was his loyalty. When the Emancipation Proclamation took place, he turned around and he freed all of his slaves. At the end of the war, the man worked very hard to bring the United States together. Okay? Many people in the South wanted the Southern soldiers to go into a guerrilla warfare, which would have been horrible for the whole country. Okay? He turned around and told them, "No, go home and be good citizens." And that's what he did, Robert E. Lee. There was a case after the war where he went to church one day, and he went up to receive communion, and a black gentleman went up to the aisle also, and it was right after the Civil War, and people were, like, you know, taken aback by this. And Robert E. Lee got up, went to the front, and kneeled down on the kneeler next to that black gentleman. Okay, so I want to bring that out too.
Okay, thank you. Glenn, Kate.
Good morning, everyone. I've addressed this committee 3 times, so I have no intention of doing so today. I'm here to address the people of Staten Island.
Sir, can you please...
as you can see, I'm a black man. I have dreadlocks, and we are all oppressed people. I'm not here to create division. I'm not here to knock you down on your heritage. You have every right to celebrate your heritage. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. What my issue is the narrow lens that people are coming with, the absolute ignoring of the fact that Columbus's people raped 9 and 10-year-old girls. It's an objective fact, and it's in his diary. I'm not saying anything that's not an objective fact. It is in the diary. Take the time to read it. Also, 80% of the Arawak population was eradicated after a 25-year period. The way that I see it is that if Dr. King did that to 9 and 10-year-old girls, and if Dr. King eradicated 80% of the Italian population, I would be out there with you protesting against statues of Dr. King and against his narrative, no matter what he did. So the reason why we're here appealing to you is because there are objective truths about genocide. If you look up the definition of genocide, that's what he did. we're not looking to erase the history of Columbus. We're looking to also bring up the history of the indigenous people and the black people. And I understand this gentleman here mentioned the fact that people didn't know about disease at that time. That I understand. However, the issue that I have personally, and that a lot of people in my position have, is that the next decision was to enslave black people. So the majority of black people that are here in the United States are here as a result of that decision. And so it holds a lot of weight, and I feel very emotional saying this because we're asking you to listen to us. It's very simple. If you're down for an objective dialogue, that's how we move forward as a people. Celebrate your heritage. Be Italian. That's what being American is all about. But what I'm trying to say is that I'd like to extend an invitation to all of you. On December 3rd, this upcoming Sunday, at Columbus Circle, we are going to have a virtual reality and augmented reality art exhibit at the statue. I invite you all to come and see the art that we are showing. It is all backed up by professors. It's academically verifiable. It is based on the truth. If you have issues with it, we can have a conversation about it. But we're just simply asking you to listen and embrace the truth from our struggle. Because like I said, we are all oppressed people, and we would be there with you if it was the other way around. We're not coming at you for being Italian. We're coming at you for one specific figure. You have great contributions in terms of Italian Americans and in terms of Italians in general. There's anyone else. But even look at the position of Mayor de Blasio. I know a lot of you don't like him, but at the end of the day, his wife and his kids are black. Columbus would have enslaved his wife and kids. Can you see the position that he's in? Can you see the position that we're in terms of the false narratives that are perpetuated that talk about how he discovered a land that was inhabited by people? False narratives are a cancer, and it contributes to societal issues that we have today. So I ask you to come out on December 3rd at 1 p.m. and come see us.
Thank you. Okay, so precedent has been set. If you want to give your testimony standing up, we will allow that going forward. Dominic, it's Scafani. Okay. Pandarith In and Sarah O'Neill are our next panel. And you are Dominic? I'm guessing you're Pandarith and Sarah. Okay, Dominic, you're first. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Dominic Scafani, and I'm from McKee High School. I'm going to come with you with a logical point of view. I'm an American AP student. For those of you that don't know what AP is, it's pretty much, it stands for Advanced Placement. It's a college level class. So I disagree with taking down the Columbus statue because of the fact that we should all remember that this is a time period of the 15th century when he discovered America, 1492, if I believe. Their ethics were totally different. It was all based on religion, and they were heavy Christians and such. No, Catholics, sorry. So they saw the Native Americans as different and such, which during this time was a big thing. Most of the Native Americans died from just disease from the Columbus Exchange and stuff because their bodies were not immune to the Black Death or smallpox and such. So without taking down the Columbus statue would mean like taking down the history of it, that if Columbus had never discovered America, we would be a Native American population by now, which a lot of our culture would be majorly different. That's all.
Thank you. Pendrin.
Hello everyone, my name is Ponyarathan. I'm from the College of Staten Island High School for International Studies. And first off, I would like to thank the Right Honorable Senator for staying and sort of hearing the issues that we all have to say. As a student who takes AP Comparative Government, and as a former student who took AP United States History and Politics, I have learned about who Christopher Columbus was, but also I have learned in high school that men are flawed. We are all flawed. It is not some sort of thing that, you know, we need to glorify. We're all flawed. And yes, Christopher Columbus was a flawed man, but we also have to remember that Christopher Columbus was a man who opened up a jar of possibilities to the continent of America. And not only that, I just want to reference 3 other statues from 3 different parts of the world that are still erected and that people still learn their history from and still embrace. In the Renaissance, the Medicis have ruled with an iron fist, but they have treated their people with humane respect. I have had the honor and privilege to visit Italy over the summer. There are statues of the Medicis all over Italy. In Iran, there is a statue of the feet of the late Shah Pahlavi, and in the UK, there is a statue of Oliver Cromwell outside Westminster Abbey. And yes, Oliver Cromwell has been seen as a person who has oppressed people, but he is also seen as a leader of the modern parliamentary system in the United Kingdom. Christopher Columbus is seen as someone who has oppressed people, but to many other people, he has seen as someone who has opened up the door for possibilities for them. He is someone that during the age of exploration has gone through the unknown. And even though that he had the intention to sail over to India, he made one of the best mistakes that most people can say that they are proud of. We can't erase our history. We cannot alter our history. I actually find history pretty interesting. So we can't do that, but we may offer the history and context of statues, of monuments. So this will allow the future generations not to glorify the entire past, but to understand the entire context of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Sarah O'Neill.
Hi, I'm also like somebody else just before. I've been to, I went to the meeting in the Bronx yesterday and the meeting in Brooklyn last week. I would have gone to the Manhattan one, but it was on a pretty tough day for people who have to cook for their families on Thanksgiving. It was the day before. But I've been thankful to listen to all the different opinions on this subject, and I thank you for your time, taking time to listen. And I felt like I've learned a lot from people in the last week, and I hope that other people are really listening to what people have to say. I wanted to quote somebody from the New York Times Magazine a few weeks ago, Bree Newsom, who climbed the flagpole at the risk of her own life to bring down the Confederate flags just over 2 years ago. This is not very long ago that people were thinking those flags should stay up. Really recently, she said recently, when people asked her if she had hope, she said, "I have hope. When I look at the past of this country, there was a time when the idea of an America without chattel slavery seemed impossible. The only reason that we're not in that condition now is because of the belief of the work of the abolitionists and people who were alive then. With that kind of assessment, I'm able to have hope. It's possible that things can get better if we do what is necessary to ensure that, but it's not just something that happens with a natural progression of time. Without taking action and being proactive, things will actually get worse than they are now." A friend of mine who was just going upstate to a Thanksgiving told me that she saw a lot of Confederate flags hanging in New York State, upstate, and this I find mind-boggling now, and I would like to ask people here if they would take the time to Google Mitch Landrieu, the mayor of New Orleans, and read his speech about why he took the statues down in New Orleans, because I think it's a very moving and strong speech and a good explanation of why these things should be considered. And I'm not sure what should happen with Columbus. I think that at the very least it would be great to put plaques up so that it can be a full education. He's up there way above, looking down on people, and I think there are no longer any, Native Americans to argue for, if this city was full of Native Americans, I think we'd have it would be an obvious, answer that what we would need to do, but it's not, because a lot of them were taken away, either pushed out or, their lives were taken. So I guess that's. I didn't think I'd ever find myself quoting George W. Bush, but there is one thing in Mitch Landriau's speech. He quoted him and said when he was at the dedication ceremony for the National Museum of African American History and Culture, he said, "A great nation does not hide its history; it faces its flaws and corrects them." And there.
Okay, thank you. We'll do a couple more panels, and then we're going to take a quick break. John Ruggiero, Corinne Longuera, and Edward Di Medina. Yeah. And so you are?
John Ruggiero.
You're John, okay. You're Edward. Corinne? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to go left to right. You're up.
Okay, thank you. My name is John Ruggiero. I live in Egbertville. That's actually on Staten Island. I don't think this hearing is just about the Columbus statue. It represents what should be done for many, many statues in the city. But as many people said, don't change history. These monuments were erected to people who did something notable, to standards that were acceptable under the norms of society at the time that they were done. These people did more good than harm. As time goes on, society's norms change, and a lot of people have brought that out. So if we're going to make a decision, we should look at what was done at the time the statue was either erected, or what was done or what the norms were at the time the person was honored. Don't wipe out history. Don't set new standards. Today, we have the highest standards for everyone other than ourselves, and we judge everybody to standards that we don't live up to. Every person that has a statue out there, or a monument, or a marker, had flaws. We all have flaws. I would say that what you should do is add a plaque. I mean, there's controversy on this whole issue. So what happens when you have controversy? Well, maybe you'll meet in the middle somewhere. Statues don't come down. You should add plaques, as somebody previously said, or markers that indicate what the controversy was about the statue, not to remove them. Also, if we look at all of the people that we, as an example, today we have this whole problem with the sexual harassment. If extramarital affairs was a consideration, whether you should be recognized or not, should we delete Kennedy? Should we delete Martin Luther King? Should we delete probably half the people that are out there with monuments? So the bottom line is, add a plaque. That'll satisfy a lot of people, but don't take the monuments down. Thank you.
Thank you. You're next, yes.
Hi, my name is Edward. I just like to say, I remember reading the Bible once, and I wanted to know, I was searching for God, to change my own past, because I did a lot of wrong things in life too, but I paid for it. But you know what? Sometimes you look, and you look at the history books, you also look at the Bible. We're all sinners. You know what I'm saying? And I don't try to look at people's past, because who am I to judge? I should judge myself by my own actions. And sometimes when you do look at a statue or a history book and you get that negativity, it just makes me want to be a better person today than what I was yesterday. The idea is to grow up. I think there's a lot of problems in Staten Island today. We need houses. We have people in the streets. Come on, let's work on those issues. To me, this is like a waste of time. Leave everything alone. Why are we going to change history? The idea is to grow up. If you don't like the statues, just say, hey, I don't want to be like that. I want to be better than that. You know what I'm saying? I learned from other people, and I made plenty of mistakes. I'm sure if you look at my name, but besides the point, I had a chance. I came from Staten Island. I'm going to give you a little story. I was in Brooklyn, New York. The Russians was coming in here. It was my birthday, July 11th. My last day, I seen my sister. She gave me $5. I was homeless. I was by Trump Village on West 6th, and they tried to rob me over looking at a soccer jersey, not a soccer jersey when Italy won the World Cup. I said, well, it's my birthday, maybe I'll get a free cup. I'm homeless. I went to South Beach Psych Center, you know, and I realized what I am supposed to do. All the mistakes, you know. Sometimes I ask God, and I think we all ask God, are we forgiven? You know, it's when we wake up, we're blessed. You know, we're blessed that whatever nation you're from, whatever religion you believe in, God loves all of us. So let's focus on those serious issues, housing, people that need food, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you got churches, some churches give you showers. They should be doing that out here, you know, for people in the streets, you know. But the most important thing is there's nothing wrong with the past. We're supposed to learn from our past, especially our own, you know. So let's focus on more serious issues, and let's get this economy back, because you know what? Everybody's worth something, you know what I'm saying? And if we put in, we get out. And we have to do it together. It's not a racist issue. It's not a jealousy issue. It's a growth issue. It's time to grow together.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Corinne Delongera. And I have to say that initially I came here today because I'm angry. I'm angry to see that those who are offended by our history are making attempts to totally change their course and to influence today's youth into not knowing our true history. My father was a World War II veteran. Yes, I'm a baby boomer, and maybe I was brought up with above average patriotic feelings. It hurts me to see the way the flag is being treated and what's going on in this country. We all came from darkness. That's the part that so many post-millennial Americans don't get. They're searching for a Garden of Eden they imagine was here before America came into being. Well, let me clue you in. There are no gardens in the wilderness. There are only thorns, blood-sucking mosquitoes and swarming biting flies. And those things become worse on a dark, moonless night. And every night was dark before our founding fathers lit the torch to show us what is possible. So why are so many raging mindlessly against who we are? What's all the self-righteous banter about the peaceful ways and inherent nobility of the Stone Age people who preceded us? That's been the counterculture narrative for half a century. But the truth about pre-colonial America is very different. Slavery was widespread among Native Americans also. Tribes, long before Europeans came to America, Apaches and Navajos regularly raided the more peaceful Pueblo Indians to plunder their goods, steal their land, slaughter their young men, and enslave their women. Mayan priests would regularly cut out the still-beating hearts of their subjects to satisfy the bloodlust of their gods. Of course, some of America's founding fathers owned slaves, and of course, some European colonists exploited Native American tribes. What part of this darkness?
Please speak right into the mic, yeah. Speak right into the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. What part we all came from this darkness don't we get? But as a fledgling America struggled to wrest free from the tyranny of the British Empire, the better angels of our nature took over. The only nation in history to eschew the divine right of the kings in favor of the God-given rights of the common man and woman, and fought a great civil war to outlaw slavery. No one has ever done that before in history. No one. And a century later, by hard work, big dreams, and Yankee ingenuity, America achieved the highest standard of living for its citizens that they would have ever seen. So I have some more advice for some of you who are still searching for this Garden of Eden. Stop for your searching and look around. You're already here. The blessings of America are plain as the noses on your faces. And remember, if it were not for Christopher Columbus, there might not have been a birth of America. If it were not for the Civil War, we would not be the United States of America. and removing the Columbus statue in Columbus Circle would be as obscene as removing the Statue of Liberty from New York Harbor. Both are gifts to the people of America from foreign countries who recognize our extraordinary history.
Okay,
Thank you.
good, thank you. Okay, please again. Okay, thank you. Nadia, do you have some more cards? I have, okay, Carl, CIA, CCIO. Yaccio, okay. Andrew Pastelli and Martin Vega. And then I think we'll take a break after this one. Okay. Sir, on the left you are? You're Carl, okay. And you are?
I am Martin Vega, sir.
Martin, and you are Andrew. Okay. Carl, you're up first. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. It's been a long morning, and many things have been said this morning that I agree with. And I'm glad that we have this opportunity to speak. I am presently the president of the Father Vincent and Carpadano Lodge, the Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America. But I come here today as a proud American citizen. I don't believe anyone would deny that Christopher Columbus is a famous historical figure. Or for that matter, the notoriety of Robert E. Lee, Commander and General-in-Chief of the Confederate Forces. Therefore, if their respective history is going to be scrutinized and updated, as is presently being done, I suggest to all those involved in the research that the scrutiny should be applied with utmost objectivity to establish nothing other than related facts. Facts that are not injected with self-interest or political motivation. Once the facts are independently established as accurate and true, their respective history should be updated accordingly, without any discretion toward omitting any facts that would be regarded as derogatory or embarrassing. For example, it is a fact that Christopher Columbus ventured into the unknown to reach the shores of Asia by sailing west. We also know that his monumental discovery inadvertently and unfortunately brought diseases that were communicated to the indigenous people who resided in the newly discovered lands. As it relates to Robert E. Lee, it is well known he was a valiant, heroic, historical figure who fought bravely to ensure the independence of the Confederacy, along with the right to preserve and perpetuate slavery, that is, the right to own human beings as chattel. Those are unadulterated, unmitigated facts, among many other facts that are attributed to Christopher Columbus and Robert E. Lee. So let us all declare the right to keep the statues where they are, and focus on seeking all the facts and disclosing the truth, and nothing but the truth, for all to review and inscribe in their respective conscience. Ultimately, we owe it to our future generations to have historical facts declared openly, warts and all, to enable everyone to make well-informed decisions when choosing right from wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Martin.
And I yield my time to anyone who wants to speak longer than I do.
All right. He doesn't necessarily have to. Thank you very much. Okay, Martin, you're next.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Martin Vega. I'm currently serving the United States Air Force. Allow me to thank everyone here. I would like to especially extend a thank you to the young community that are taking the time to show up here and to say a voice, which is great. I'm not one for public speaking, but when I heard the Christopher Columbus statue was going to be removed, I figured as an American I had to rise up and help and stop this. Allow me to disclose that I am not an Italian. I'm Puerto Rican, and I am Colombian. Before I enlisted, my grandmother used to take me to the city during the summertime every year, and she would take me to places that meant a lot to her because she was an immigrant from Puerto Rico. And she told me that there's so many beautiful statues in New York that embody people that made a difference in history. One of those marvels was the Christopher Columbus statue. It reminds us how that this is the greatest nation in the world, and it was formed by an idea whose man who was punished for his beliefs, that he was ridiculed to believe that the world wasn't flat, that he can travel and see the world for what it really was. He challenged the social norms of that time to create and help foreshadow our future nation today. When I came back from the Air Force, My grandmother had severe Alzheimer's, and she doesn't really remember who I am anymore. It would hurt her to know that they're even thinking of considering taking the statue down, so I will not tell her. If the destruction of this statue brings solution to this temporary problem, I fear then what this nation is coming to. Tearing down the statue damages the idea of the American dream and what this nation can provide. The Great Wall of China has been built since 260 BC. It was designed to separate themselves from other Asians, yet millions of people around the world spend thousands of dollars to go see a wall built on top of dead bodies. That is, if anything, one of the greatest symbols of segregation on this earth today. We cannot rewrite history. However, we can be celebrating the collective of cultures that helped build this nation. As a city, we can stop this latest trend of stripping this world of its treasures and capture the success of past. Mayor de Blasio said in his campaign slogan that this is our city, but moments like today prove that it really is not. We need to work together as a people and voice our concerns, and this truly is one of our biggest ones today. Please leave the statue as is, for it brings hope to the future generation of people, men and women, to come. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Again, please, Andrew is next.
Thank you, sir. I think this is a watershed.
Please speak right into
I believe this is a watershed moment for the whole nation, because this question isn't only unique to Staten Island nor New York City. And I think the question is being muddled in a number of ways. Number one, we're not talking about any other nation. We're talking about the United States of America as opposed to any other nation. We're talking about individuals who had a direct effect on America as opposed to any other nation. Is it the good or the bad? Is it the right or the wrong? Is it truth or falsehood? And I think it's more about truth or falsehood, and this scares a lot of people, because for so long we have been miseducated about our past. And what we are now living in is an age of enlightenment. Enlightenment due to our progress, particularly so when it comes to artificial intelligence and our ability to obtain information and to weigh that information. And I feel that the younger generation now are reacting to the lies or the miseducation that has been presented to them for so long, not only here on Staten Island, but through the whole United States. And I think that the status quo is a little nervous because they don't know how to apologize for the miseducation that they have been perpetuating for so long. Will the removal of statues and monuments satisfy? No, not necessarily. And I agree with a lot of other gentlemen and women that came up here, and I think the statue should stay. But beside those statues need to be a correct view of history as it was, not as our history books wanted them to be, which means now we're going into the educational system itself. This is a problem. It's a big problem. But I think it's one that we can handle, but we have to be truthful about it. It's not about the right, it's not about the wrong, it's not about the good, it's not about the bad. It's about truth and falsehood, and that's what the young are reacting to.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We will, I think there are restrooms up on the third floor, yes? We have a bunch more people ready to testify, and we're going to be here listening to everybody until we're finished. Thank you very much.
I was nominated by the president. Yeah, so twice actually. So it was a big up my fault. How are you doing? Yeah. Yes, yes, I was involved with it. They were doing a good job. I was involved with it. There was a lot of controversy.
Do you then go back and sort of clean it up?
I actually was disagreeing with what Columbus, right? Installation.
I have a sweater here.
It was amazing, amazing. How were you?
How long have you been there? Yeah, like
I'm not cutting out.
Contextually relevant preservation, Yahoo. Thank you.
I know. Which are right here. Yeah.
A lot of the other people were too, but
I'm not sure who put it
step up. Well, that is the other.
By the way, without still saying
No one was doing
well, and that one's been yeah, what happened is it was down in somewhere, I forget where, and then they moved it to East Harlem of all places. We're like, what is this? You know? Yeah. Yeah, you too.
Uh-oh.